Hi, my name is Laura Burgoyne, and I'm excited to be joining together with my sister Connie Blackwood in the NOSA Unleashed podcast. Here, we want to expose the stigma surrounding mental health issues by illuminating and discussing real-life challenges and obstacles, keeping us paralyzed and fearful to move forward. Let us inspire you to believe there's more to life than what you're currently experiencing. You can rise from your despair and find hope for the future. It's time to end the silence, remove the stigma of mental health, and to pursue the path to purpose and fulfillment. We will do this together because no one stands alone. Welcome back to the NOSA Unleashed podcast, where we discuss real-life topics that impact us in our everyday lives. I'm Laura Burgoyne, joined here with my sister Connie Blackwood, and this month we're going to be talking a lot about dreams and why they're important, and what do we do with them when they seem to no longer exist or be buried underneath the rubble of our life. And today specifically, we want to talk about hope deferred. What does that look like, and what do we do with it when it happens? Because I know even through a lot of the circumstances that have happened over the last couple of years, a lot of us are feeling a lot of hope deferred. A lot of expectations and hopes that we had, dreams that we've had for our life seem like, they're dead. They seem like they're lost. They seem like they'll never come to pass. And that's a pretty hopeless place to be in. And I don't want any of us to stay there. And so Connie and I, we're going to be discussing this today. So Connie, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here again.
So, I'm just going to start right off by saying, we all have dreams. That's a nature of being human. Like we do have an underlying desire to grow and to become something that we're not currently. But how often in life do those things become lost? They become things that become out of our sight, that seem unachievable because of the circumstances we face and the challenges that we have come in our lives. And one thing I was thinking about is, like, oftentimes if our dreams don't happen right away, it almost seems like they just get buried, like I mentioned before, buried under the weight of what I would call deferred hope. And there's actually a scripture in Proverbs 13:12, that says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing or dream fulfilled is a tree of life." And I'm sure that we all can relate to this feeling of hope deferred, just that sick feeling, that feeling like, I'm never going to achieve what I want to, or that it's too late for me, or things are just hopeless. But when those dreams come to life, when those things actually happen in our life, it is literally like a tree of life. And so, yeah, I want to talk more about this, Connie. What are your thoughts about deferred hope? Have you experienced that in your life before?
Actually, yeah. Um, I when I was like when I was in high school, you do all these tests and you figure out what you're supposed to be. And so then I thought I was going to be a lawyer. That's kind of funny thought right now, based on where my life has gone. But at the time, I really wanted to become a lawyer, and I had got like really great grades, and I was really excited. And then I applied for university, and I got rejected because I had no extracurricular activities, and obviously the people I was up against still had their extracurriculars and the grades. So,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get into university, and then you're like, okay, what do I do now? And it just at that point, I was like, okay. And I never did become a lawyer, but I realized that wasn't really my dream. That was more of something that I thought I could be good at based on my stuff. And when I really looked at my life, what did I actually dream about? What did I actually want to do? It was about like more becoming a writer, right? And so even the things that statistics tell you should be your dream may not
Right.
actually be your dream. Right. And so I had actually started writing when I was 12. I would write poetry, I would write short stories, and then like in high school I wrote a whole manuscript of a novel, but I never had the bravery for it to get published or to see the light of day. I don't even think I showed it to you, Laura, let alone
No,
anyone.
I still have not seen this manuscript.
I don't even know if I still have it because I moved quite a few times and it may have gotten lost along the way. But it was something I was passionate about. And then, you know, life happens and the last thing that it was on my mind was to continue to write. And so it ended up getting packed in a box to the point where I don't even know where it is anymore,
Yeah.
you know. But I've written another book since then, and it got published last year and I'm super excited about that. Right.
Hmm.
And so I think about that and well, not last year, the year before. And I'm just like, okay, it actually did come true. How many years later? And, you know, during that time, did I think that I would ever be a writer again? Not necessarily. And like that was just one of the many dreams I had for my life. And
Hmm.
so it just thinking about that is like, okay, well, throughout that time, I never thought that I would actually be a writer because,
Yeah.
it wrapped up in your day to day. I was an administrator. Administrators don't become authors. Come on.
It's funny that you brought up that example, Connie, because it brought something up for me that I was not even thinking about and was not on my radar. But me too, as I was in school, I had this desire to be a physiotherapist. And I had taken all the health classes, all the physiotherapy classes, like all of like biology to the highest level. Like I knew everything about the body, all of this stuff. And then I applied to university and I was rejected, but I was rejected because my grades weren't good enough. And there was a lot of loss that came with that because that was a dream that I had and I thought it was significant. And, shortly after that, I got married, started having children, and, that dream kind of just died or went away. Like, my whole life completely shifted directions. But here I am, fast forward, 20 something years later, it just dawned on me. Yes, I'm an author. Yes, I love to help people with their mental health, but I'm also a wellness advocate.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like even my desire to help people in their health has actually manifested in my life. And I didn't even do the connection until just this moment talking to you. Like
Mm.
that's pretty cool. Like I'm just kind of like shocked here. Like, wow. So my pursuit, my desire to pursue wellness and pursue helping people find wellness and wholeness in their physical being is actually coming to pass, which is absolutely incredible. But not only that, I'm actually helping people on a holistic level, which is not only with their physical health, but also with their mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. So, I mean, like God just totally took that vision and expanded it. So, I'm sorry for sharing this, but I was just like, as you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a huge
No,
revelation. This is amazing.
that's great, actually. And it actually got me thinking about what motivated me to want to be a lawyer. And it was to help people, right? And to be able to get
Hmm.
them to a place where they felt more secure, more safe, and whatever they were facing would be dealt with and behind them. And in a way, me like doing counseling and mentoring of people has actually helped fulfill that part of like, for
Hmm.
me, like being able to help people get to the place of freedom, to get to the place of, and it's just a different way of doing it. So it's not
Yeah.
like I lost my dream. It's just the path that the school thought I should take was a different one than I ended up taking to achieve that goal. And so sometimes when we're younger, we think we have to achieve our dreams a certain way. And maybe
Hmm.
it happens a different way, like we both experienced.
Yeah, and because we often think, well, it has to be done this way, right? We get so rigid in and how we, pursue the dreams that we have in our heart. Like I believe, the desires and the dreams that we have in our heart are for a purpose. Like they've been placed there for a purpose beyond ourselves, right? Like we're not just on this earth to just live and be ourselves. Like I believe that we're here to make an impact to others, right? But one thing I do recognize is along that journey, there was a lot of losses, right? Like there was a lot of periods of time. We're talking about a 20, almost 25, 26 year span here. And in that time, there was a lot of periods of my life where I was just like, I've missed my timing. Like my dreams are not going to be fulfilled. Like there was a lot of hope deferred. And, you know, if you're in that place, like you actually do have to kind of grieve, go into a season of grief, right? Because you're grieving, you're giving yourself permission to grieve, the loss of a dream or the fact that that dream's not happening the way that you thought. Like disappointments come along the way, and I once heard this saying, like, if you don't allow yourself to grieve, you'll mourn forever, right? And I think in order for us to actually move forward and pursue dreams, we sometimes have to allow ourselves to grieve even the mindset or the thoughts that we had, right? For example, when I had this dream of going to the U of A and becoming a physiotherapist, when that didn't happen, I actually went through a bit of grief, right? To be rejected, it impacted my sense of value. Um, I wasn't good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there is, in that process of deferred hope, there is a process where I think we have to go through that is, letting go, grieving, grieving those expectations or those, you know, even the timelines sometimes, right? Because we're like, I'm going to do this in this timeline and it doesn't happen, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
then, we can make two conclusions. One, well, it's never going to happen, or it's just not happening now. Maybe the timing's not right, right? But there's still that emotional part of it that we got to let go of. We got to allow ourselves to grieve and be able to process through that.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about um, when you're talking about grief, I was thinking about the biggest dream I ever had to grieve over, I think was not being able to be a mom, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And God has fulfilled that in other ways. I mean, I'm like, you know, able to mother other people's kids, which is fun because then I can send them home, right?
Yeah.
Plus, I also have cats I can dote on. Uh, But God showed me that it didn't have to be my own children, right? That I can pour into. It can be children in our community, children in our church, children in our family. And I think God has used me and Walter in huge ways in these children's lives because we can give them something that we wouldn't be able to give them if we had our own children because we'd be pouring that into our own kids. And so I
Right.
think in that way, it's been a blessing. And so, but that was something I had to grieve. And that was something that was probably the biggest grief that I faced in my life so far.
Yeah. But you had to go through that grief, right? Like, because there's
Yeah.
loss. Where you when you have a dream and you come to the realization that the way that you pictured it to be and the way you had always hoped it to be, that well, that's not gonna happen. Like there is a grief there. There is a
Mhm.
loss. And we do have to process through that in order to have joy in the next season or in the way that, those things will come to pass, right?
Mm.
And something else came to mind because when I struggled with depression and anxiety and suicidal, tendencies as a youth, when I when I actually came through that season and found freedom from that, like I had this incredible passion to help others find freedom from those issues, and I was very, very passionate about it. I was zealous to help people find hope in their life, right? And back then, I had in my heart that I would start this nonprofit called No One Stands Alone. I had pictures. I could visually see what things I would do, how I would help people. I saw myself as an author, but that was at the age of 16, right? Now we are, here in my mid 40s. And, there was a lot of time in between there where I thought, this dream, I've missed it. I've missed my timing. It's not going to happen. Now I have kids. Now they're growing up. Like, you know, I've just missed it, right? And it wasn't until 3 years ago when I really felt that prompting from God that now is the time. When I look back, if I had started when I was 16, it would have been like I've had so much experience since then. I've gone through so much in my life. I have so much more wisdom. Like if I had pursued those things at that age, it would have been incomplete. It wouldn't have been, the full vision of what I needed to step into. And I think sometimes we need to recognize that when we have a dream, it doesn't mean it's going to happen now,
Mhm.
right? A lot of times those dreams are to give us hope for our future, to give us something to work towards, to give us a sense of purpose for our future, right? And so, for years though, I did hold a lot of disappointment thinking that, something I had done something wrong. And so those dreams that I had would never come to pass. And, fast forward many, many years, here we are, and I'm stepping into some of these dreams that I've had since I was a little girl. And I have other dreams that still need to be fulfilled. But I recognize now that there's something that comes with timing, right? And so
I find
don't despise those seasons of waiting, right? Go ahead, Connie.
I was just saying like timing is everything, and sometimes we don't know what we need to have in place before our dreams come true, because there are things that if I had written though when I was younger, it would all been like novels and stuff and fantasy or whatever. It wouldn't have been the books that I'm writing now, which are about like how to heal through trauma and all of that stuff. And it would be very different. And I don't know if I would have ever been able to switch gears if I started it that way. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and like I needed to go through a lot of healing to be able to come to the place where I could write this book, right? And
Yeah.
write more books to come. And so there's a reason why the timing is what it is. And I think a lot of it has to do with our growth and our being at the right place at the right time in order to actually make the impact that we always desired to make.
Mm-hmm. I had this, like, I love prophecy. I love when people, get a sense for you and your future and they speak into you. And this one guy, he spoke into me and he said, Laura, I see you, you're in a movie theater and you're watching this movie. And as you're watching the movie happen, you're so joyful and you're so excited and you're getting so excited about the scenes that are playing out on this movie screen. And he said, but God wants you to know that what's playing out on that movie screen is your life. And whatever you can picture, it will come to pass. Like that's what your future is. And that's the whole essence of dreaming, right? And I know
Mhm.
we'll talk about this more in another conversation, but we have to get past the hope deferred. We have to allow ourselves to grieve those losses from the past. But ultimately, the goal is that we learn to dream again. We learn to um, pursue those things that are on our heart, even if they've been buried. We need to unravel them. We need to unearth them and allow ourselves to step into a new season of dreaming, especially after this season that we've all been through. It's been tough. It's been hard. And I think we all need to step into a new season of living our lives to the fullest, allowing ourselves to dream. And what a wonderful world it would be if we all started living out our dreams. I can't wait to see more and more of us doing that. So thank you all for joining us today as we, talk about this subject of hope deferred. And some of you might be in that place where you're just like, you know what, there's just no hope. My dreams are dead. I don't even know what direction my life's going to take. If that's you, I want to just speak hope over you that there is hope. And, allow yourself to grieve those losses, but also allow yourself to, start having hope for your future. And it's not over. The story's not over. Like Connie always says, if it's not good, then it's not done yet, right? So if you're still breathing, then you still have opportunity to dream and have those dreams fulfilled. So Connie, any last thoughts or comments before we close up for today?
She pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. But yeah, if you are one of those people who's like in the hope deferred section of life right now, just remember your heart being sick doesn't have to be a lifetime sentence. That's what grief is about. Grief is about letting all of that go and being able to move forward. And when you move forward, remember the dream fulfilled is a tree of life. And if you've looked at a tree that's full of life, it's hard to look away. Those giant oak trees are hard to look away from when they're so full of life. And yeah, it's pretty amazing when you see somebody who's living out their dream. It's hard to look away.
Mm-hmm. That's right. All right. Well, on that note, we thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the NOSA Unleashed podcast. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. Join us next time on the NOSA Unleashed podcast.